Pretty disappointing interview. One, because it's not a video interview, which is like the main way people communicate nowadays. Two, because it's in Harper's Bazar, which is not hip hop adjacent in any way. And three, because the interviewer is SZA. It's going to be a softball interview, which it was. A new Kendrick Lamar interview. This is like the first Kendrick Lamar interview I've seen in years. I haven't read it yet. It's completely text. I'll just kind of go through and voice the answers. It's Kendrick Lamar and SZA. So we'll just skip this. We'll get right to the questions and answers. I will say it is a little disappointing that Kendrick's first interview in such a long time is with Harper's Bazar, which is like a women's fashion magazine or something. I think we would all like to see Kendrick Lamar with a hip hop platform, but I mean, I'm sure he'll do it at some point. Probably Big Boy in LA or something like that. Okay, so SZA here, she asks about Kendrick Lamar's mental health. Do you feel you suffer from mental illness or experience it ever? Or do you just feel like you're in a multitude of feelings and you're not putting a label on? And I'll also preface this by saying, picking SZA for the interview host, this is very like softball. This is like his label mate. And sure, some people can see it as a shot at Drake or something because I guess Drake and SZA used to date or whatever. But we know this is not going to be a challenging interview at all. It's SZA and Kendrick Lamar. Kendrick says, I grew up with that term. I was hearing it when I was 5, 6 years old. So you identify with it being mental illness, but not as it is. Kendrick says, my whole thing is all experience. I say some shit on the record and identify with the moment, and then I don't identify it with it anymore. That's just growth for me. All that is subjective. Okay, I feel this. I say something on the record. In the moment, that's how I feel. But then as I grow, I don't identify with it anymore. SZA says it's giving self-therapy. Things go back to my inner child. I was trying to understand myself, okay. Can I say something? Hey, I hope this whole interview doesn't go like this. Inner child, identify myself. I sound crazy to a lot of people. I can really see myself outside of my body. Are you scared? No, because I've learned I can't identify my performances on stage. I can't hold true my whole identity to that person who's on stage. He feels like there's two different people. There's him as he is as in real life, and then there's like, I guess this character that he's built as Kendrick Lamar. Because if I did, that means I would judge every movement, every time I fuck up, a lyric, every time I'm off key. Remember I did that video where Kendrick messed up the Euphoria bars at the pop-out show? And people were like, no, he didn't mess up. He didn't mess up. He did that on purpose. Okay, guys, Kendrick Lamar messes up. Like, this guy is he's not your savior, bro. Like, he's not perfect. Like, I don't know, some of the Kendrick fans, they're beyond me. I'll say that. It's too much to deal with, so I have to have a distance between the performer and the person I close my eyes and look at the ceiling with. I had to develop that tough skin at like 16, 17 years old, knowing it was not only for my career, but for myself. It's mentally ill for sure. It's very honest. Speaking of honesty and ego, have you done ayahuasca? Okay, so Kendrick, he mentions ayahuasca in the Drake diss titled Meet the Grams. Kendrick said, I haven't done it. He says, what? I wonder how you're arriving at all these conclusions. Well, SZA, you don't have to be on drugs to self-analyze yourself. I want to talk to you about your spiritual practices. How many spiritual practices contribute to your day-to-day? K-Dot says all day, every day. Ain't no BS, ain't no cliche. I literally talk to God. Like, it's to a point where I'll be starting to think I'm going crazy. Then he has to remind me, no, this is really me. My early morning practice is I have to run. When I start running, that's when I started to understand. I agree with that. Because people have these excuses that they make. I can't work out. I have no time to do this. I have this going on. Okay. Everyone has something going on, but people find a way to work out. When you go for a run, it really, especially when you haven't done it in a while, you feel so good afterwards. You're like, I'm going to do this more often. I'm going to continue to do this. But then most people never continue to do it. But running, it's like, there's something about running or just even jogging that it clears the mind. There's this threshold of pain in the spirituality for me. I remember my shins was aching and I was like, I got 1 mile to go. Then I get whispers and downloads and start talking about stuff I don't want to know about. Next thing, I'm 3 miles in, 4 miles in. I wake up and do it every day. Yeah. Running, I think that's a very good, or even any exercise, but running is free. You can go outside, put some shoes on and run. You know, it doesn't require a gym membership. What do you feel like your top 3 contributing factors to self-transformation in the last few years have been? So this is going to be like a mental health, sit down. The power of honesty, being honest with myself, perspective about this person sitting across from me. Yeah, that's important, their perspective. And learning that vulnerability is not a weakness. The last one, probably I'm still developing. It says, what's the hardest? K-Dot says the last one being vulnerability. We talk about our childhood. I hate going back to that. It's traumatizing. My pops was tough. He was militant. He never showed no weakness, never showed any emotion that could garner a one-up from the person sitting across from him. I learned to experience that not knowing I had the same traits, right? If I understood the power of vulnerability earlier, I could have had more depth and more reach to the guys that was around me in the neighborhood coming up. So what is he saying? Like he could have led them on a better path or something. Our parents, they never had these outlets to express themselves the way they wanted to. Yeah, like social media and stuff. I've always looked at us as somewhat as a beacon of hope, or even just the musical platform, I guess he's talking about, that him and SZA have. I always wanted to know, how does your mom feel about your self-expression? I'm not gonna lie, I don't really care about SZA's perspective on things. She says, when was the last time you cried? When was the first time you cried? When was the first, when you came out the womb, right? Isn't that for all of us? Isn't that all, the first time we cried? The last time I cried would probably be on Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers album on the Mother Eye Sober record. That shit was deep for me. Mother Eye, wait a second. That wasn't a record where he said he got molested, but yeah. That's the record that Drake was referencing on the Harper 6. He said that's the last time he cried. Okay. I could see that. That was that whole album is it's like a trauma dump. So I can understand why he would get emotional doing that album, the whole thing. Would you say you've done more crying recently than you have in your life? Now? Yeah, I have to. It's cleansing. Why does he feel like he has to, do more crying recently? When was the first time you allowed it to happen? The first time I allowed it to happen that is documented on stage, actually. In 2011, when Dre and Snoop and the whole West Coast was out, and they was like, this is the torch that we're handing off. Dre passed me the torch, and a burst of energy just came out, and I had to let it flow. So I actually remember this when it happened.
Nigga, you got the torch, nigga. You better run with that.
This was before Kendrick's first studio album, Good Kid, Mad City, but Kendrick was already extremely popular at this point. And basically the whole previous West Coast guard that was there in the rap scene, from Das, Corrupt, Game, Snoop, they basically passed him the torch. And this was a great moment. My tears is all on the internet. And now I look back and I love that moment. It was a great moment. Think of how many rappers get that. How many rappers who are coming up get their region's previous stars to basically anoint him on stage. And then they followed through. It's like LeBron coming into the league as a rookie. He's already on the cover of Sports Illustrated in high school. He's the biggest basketball player in the world out of high school. And then to actually live up to those expectations, crazy. That SZA says that was emotional and pretty. What do you want for yourself now? What's your driving force? Do you feel like you've done it all? Do you feel like now it's all for the plot? Is the plot you? Is further self-discovery the plot? Is it domination? Kendrick says, I was asking myself that this morning. I get fulfilled sharing my experiences with the youth and allowing them to hear these stories and hear these experiences and catch up on them. To answer the question, it's just communication with people in general. It's funny that Kendrick's thing is that he wants to communicate his story to us, but he just rarely drops albums. So is the communication with the people, and I feel my work in music is just a start. Okay, I don't think that's my end goal. Music is just a vessel to get me there. Fair. What is it that you want the most, if you want, for anything at all? K-Dot says, I want information. I want resources. I want to meet people smarter than me. I want to talk to them. I want them to show me things. I want to be fulfilled with whatever this world has to offer. Okay, yeah. When you're rich, when you have as much money as Kendrick, you can, information, resources, you can meet pretty much anyone you want to. That makes sense at his level where he's at. Because you already have worldly material things that you want. Like, you already have all the worldly stuff. You can buy whatever you want. So at that point, what more could somebody want? Well, more information, more resources, and just to meet interesting people. That's rich nigga problems. SZA says, you have such Father Time energy, which is a Kendrick song, Father Time, on Mr. Morale. It's very universal dad vibes. Actually, it's more universal sensei. It's almost gender ambiguous. I just don't think SZA is a great person to be doing this interview. I mean, I respect it because, he's keeping it in-house or whatever. I would just rather see like a journalist or like someone in hip-hop media conduct this interview so we can get a good interview. You know what I mean? A really good interview. It's father and mother because you actually okay, whatever. I have to balance both. At first, all I knew was masculinity. Always kept that wall up because of my pops. The more I delve deeper into my music and the more expressive I get with myself, that's the feminine energy right there. That's not the bravado I grew up seeing all the time. This is who I am, the soft-spoken me, and I have to own it. SZA, okay, we get the not like us question. She asks, can I ask you a hyper-masculine question? What does not like us mean to you? Kendrick laughs, not like us, it's the energy of who I am, the type of man I represent. Now, if you identify with the man I represent, this man has morals, values, he's believed in something, he stands on something, he's not pandering. He's a man who can recognize his mistakes and not be afraid to share the mistakes, and can dig deep into the fear-based ideologies or experiences to be able to express them without feeling like he's less than a man. Is that what Not Like Us is about? Is that what that song is about? I thought it was about calling Drake a PDF file. Okay. If I'm thinking of Not Like Us, I'm thinking of me and whoever identifies with that. So this is like the thing. Okay. Cool. So we just got the actual meaning of Not Like Us, guys. Is it bullshit? Put it in the chat. I think he's trying to answer this question because obviously this is what everyone wants to ask him about is Not Like Us. So it's like the elephant in the room. You can't really avoid this question. I mean, you could. You got SZA in the room, which, I mean, you could just tell her not to ask it. But he's trying to answer the question without mentioning Drake. That's what it's about. Now, can I say something else in that realm? This is SZA saying this, or do you want me to get away from that? Can I ask you something else? So this is what I don't understand about rappers, because Nas kind of does this too. When they create these huge records about another artist, and then they go and do the interviews, they don't want people to ask him about the record. Like how Nas blew up at Nardwuar because Nardwuar was mentioned Ether, which is a great diss record. It's not like Nas got destroyed on that record, you know, and asking him about it is like bringing up one of his failures. It's like, no, this is one of your biggest records. It's the same with Kendrick and Not Like Us. So like even the energy where she feels like, oh, I shouldn't ask you about that. Why? Like, why are artists like this? You made the damn record. Now answer the questions about it. Kendrick said, is it mean? Is the question going to be mean? SZA says, no, it's more like, I really thought it was interesting that there was any consensus at all that you might be an angry individual. For me, I don't find that. More energy, spirituality, in the ether talk. Oh my God, I'm developing a headache. I don't find that any energy comes from you from an angry place. Actually, the last hour and change pretty much solidifies that it's almost from a yogic monk-like place. So when you feel the surge of energy in records like that, where is that? Where's the root? Is it anger? I believe in love and war. My awareness allows me to react to things, but not identify with them who I am. Okay. I just hate when people talk in this like type of language. It's flowery, kind of like direct but indirect language, and then and the energy and the chakras and all that. Let's just can we be direct? Like, okay, I'm just gonna quit while I'm ahead before I say something crazy. This is why I would just rather a proper hip hop media or a journalist be in that seat, because they're not going to be afraid to ask Kendrick questions, and they're not going to be afraid of what Kendrick's reaction might be. They're trained to ask the question. Kendrick says, let me see what's going on with you. Oh yeah, express yourself. Okay. Take a shot every time they say express, vulnerability, energy, childhood. Yeah, I don't really care what SZA got going on, to be honest. Yeah, that was the end. So, yeah, I basically learned nothing in this interview. Pretty disappointing interview. One, because it's not a video interview, which is like the main way people communicate nowadays. Two, because it's in Harper's Bazar, which is not hip hop adjacent in any way for a man who just had the #1 hip hop song in the world. And three, because the interviewer is SZA. It's going to be a softball interview, which it was. Experiences, energy, childhood, chakras, ayahuasca, therapy, it's giving. Like, fuck this shit. I wasted my time so you don't have to. Yeah, so hopefully we get a real Kendrick Lamar interview coming up soon from someone in hip hop media. I really can't blame SZA too much because she's not an interviewer. She's a musician. So yeah, hopefully we get a proper Kendrick Lamar interview coming up soon from someone in hip hop media who's not going to cringe at the thought of asking him questions about records he's made, and they're not going to dance around it because they don't want to ruin their friendship. But yeah, maybe I'm just messy though. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. Top5rapwebsite.com.